This is Wet Your Palate, just telling you a little bit about what to expect in this next episode. We got pretty deep into AI and where it's at in relationship to the world of wine and grape growing and farming.
I would say Joe Wagner versus AI, and Joe Wagner won.
Fucking champion,
you gotta check it out.
Let's see, we also talked about a little personal stuff, had a little family accident this
really
last
personal.
weekend. You got to tell me. You got to tell me about the jacket.
Let it rip.
You got to tell me about what is. It's got anchors on the buttons.
It's a pea coat, and
it's a pea coat,
and it's giving you Peaky Blinder
Oh,
vibes.
when you said pea coat, it was giving me golden shower vibes actually. So
you golden shower vibes.
Dude, you're the one that's got that like yellow
I'm just
thing.
wondering what you're watching, man. Why do they have anything
I
on?
learned a lot from Mr. S, bro.
Oh my! Back to your
what? Okay.
You give them so much.
No, but
credit.
Okay. So you think you're Peaky Blinders? You think you got the Peaky Blinders stuff?
I was just throwing it out there before.
I know.
Came at me.
For the non-viewers, just the listeners out there, Chris looks like a ship captain from like 1906. The mustache, the fucking pea coat. Your hair is even like dark, like looks greasy and wet. Like yeah. Oh man, it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you.
Yeah. So interesting weekend.
I think your hair just keeps migrating more and more into a mohawk kind of thing.
This is kind of Peaky Blinders. If I just let it like fall to the side,
see, Oh, that's what happened. You got a little.
I'm gonna go back to the mullet just to bug the shit out of my wife. Yeah, that's it. Are
you going back to the mullet?
I'm gonna grow it.
I hope so.
I'm gonna go full burly ass beard and mullet. I got to get back to it. Just kind of, a little more fun.
Yeah.
I just want to look like a dumb like Guy Fieri. That guy just looks.
Well, you
like
won't
such
look like
a piece
that
of garbage.
he has the frosted tips.
He's also a dick. I've had 2 events.
Oh
with
my
him.
gosh, we've already talked.
What?
He really rubbed you the wrong way.
Dude, how do people treat like the servers in a restaurant? Right? You can be super nice to me. And he was fine with me, but like the way I saw him treat other people,
I know.
I'm like, dude, this bleached hair has gotten to your brain, and I don't know, like he's just food's garbage too.
Not everyone can have a ferret on their head just nesting. That's what it looks like.
Anyways, that was my trash talking session for a little while. Surprise. Guy Fieri's a total dick. This is an actual ad. This is not even part of what we wanted to talk about.
It wasn't. Or just
mistreating
Googled it
staff and other
up.
workers. Yeah.
Oh.
Dude, that's
wow,
not
it's
even,
already on the internet.
It's probably been there for a long time. I just don't appreciate it when people do that stuff. So if you're listening, just be kind to everyone. Treat them all the same. Don't have an alter ego or, fucking whatever the Italians call it, due face. Don't be two-faced. Yeah.
That's the compliments I've gotten about this podcast, actually, is that there's no alter ego.
You know how much easier life is? Like, I think about the people...
You come in here and you're just,
But I think about the people that do have that, or like 2 or 3, 4 personalities that are like, they're having to mix that shit up all the time, depending on the scenario, all in an effort to advance in some way, right? Or oppress another person.
Like a chameleon?
To maintain their role by oppressing, or to climb the chain... by being a chameleon, right? And so I don't know, that just sounds exhausting. Like I'd rather people hate me for the shit that I believe in and that I say than to think that like I just I'm catering to you because I think I know your personality and what you want. Like it's just stand for something or nothing at all.
I know a lot of
it's simple.
Yeah, everyone loves you, man. Do you?
Dude,
I can imagine that you
I
have any haters.
I don't like compliments either. So, I don't have any haters. Yeah, none at all.
You don't have any.
There was one. I can't pull it up. It was on TikTok, and some guy was like talking shit, and so like we responded with something. This is pretty like rude. I was like, fuck it, let it fly. Let's have some fun with this.
Was it a geographical comment or something?
No, it was something about like winemaking or a wine style, whatever it was. Anyways, you can look it up on one of our posts on TikTok.
Let me guess. Let me guess. Was he a winemaker himself?
No.
Oh, come on.
No.
Really?
I know, surprisingly.
That's so weird because I feel most of your haters are, not winemakers. Yeah. So that's always kind of interesting,
It is interesting. And I would love to have those people out here to like actually try to make wine. It's like, hey, here's 10 pounds of grapes. Here's some yeast, whatever it is you need. Punch it down. do what you think is right. Ask AI, because we're going to talk about AI today.
Oh yeah, why AI? But before we do, how was I know if you don't mind talking about, but I mean, because this past weekend was a little rough.
It was a little rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, I could talk about it. It was so one of my kids, 12 years old. He had two friends over, and they're ripping around on motorcycles like they always do. Like he's in a motocross and that kind of thing. So, but they were on like smaller bikes. They're still big bikes. They're on 125s, like Honda 125s, 4-stroke. But they're capable bikes, you know. But they were just kind of like doing a ride and speed riding or whatever, like through the track and all that. So, one of the kids changes direction on the track, and they come around a blind curve, and they get in a head-on these two bikes. And they both tried to turn out of the way, and they ended up colliding directly into each other. And I think my son, they collided into each other. They were both wearing all the safety gear, and then my son like ricocheted off and like hit a tree. And so the third friend comes running up to the house, and he's like, "They got in a crash. I walk out, and the other kid is there. He's got it was almost a compound fracture, but it luckily didn't break through the skin, but like clean break lower on the forearm. And so he's like holding his arm up and it's just dangling. And I'm like, I'm not gonna mention any names. I was like, dude, are you bleeding? And he's like, I don't think so. And he looked ghost white. And, and so I was like, I need you to sit down. I'm going to get you help in a minute, but I got to go and find my son. Like, I don't know where he's at, and it sounds like he's bad.
Yeah.
So I walked down, or run down. First time I'd, like, sprinted like that in fucking 5 years. So I find him, and I'm laughing about this because it turned out okay, but it's a story, right? So,
yeah.
Run down, find him face down, not responding. He got knocked out. Found he was breathing, but I didn't want to move his body at all. Didn't know the severity of it or anything. And finally got him to come to, and then was asking him, like, okay, can you move your fingers? And he's like, I can't move my fingers. Couldn't move his toes, his legs, his arms. Touched a little bit on his back, and he just said it felt like pins and needles, like tingly. And so, you're like, okay, well, that sounds like it may be paralysis. I don't know. Like, that's what's going on in my mind. And I'm like, I'm not going to touch him. Some of my other kids had shown up. My wife had shown up, and like nobody touch him. And the ambulance, fire department, they got up there like within minutes, dude. That's like one of the beauties of living in a small town. So they get up there, and they check him out. They get him, as cleanly and as with little movement as possible onto a board, and then they put a brace on his neck. Get him into the ambulance, and they called in a helicopter. So it actually was a CHP helicopter, California Highway Patrol. So they come in. It took them, like, from wherever they were when they got the call, 8 minutes. They land on our property, load him in, and they knew, like, this dude, CHP officer, these guys were awesome. They knew everything that was going on with the kids so far, and, like, they had called it in. We flew down to Oakland Children's Hospital. It's a UCSF hospital, and, like, he calls it in just 2 minutes before landing. Blah, 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 whatever. And then they rush him into the ER. There's 15 people in the ER, and they just start going to town on, like, all the basics, trying to figure out, just troubleshoot and knock things out, like organ damage, like whatever else. So they went through all that stuff, and then they brought him in for x-rays. He's still on the board, still on the brace and all that. He's talking. He's able to respond and stuff, just in a lot of pain. And so it was a couple hours into it, and he finally, like, is able to move his fingers and his toes, and then he starts, like, moving his like legs and arms a little bit, but you can tell he's either really sore or just kind of like getting it back. And so we were there for probably like 8 hours before we got any word on all of the tests. So organs, blood, urine, X-rays, all that, like any scans or anything like that. So anyway, so they actually discharged us that night because they let us know, like, okay, there's no broken bones. And I was like, you are one lucky little guy. Like, so no broken bones. They don't think there's any damage to his organs. And they just said, like, keep an eye out for any changes in his nervous system. I don't know if something got pinched, something got damaged there. So call us if anything comes up. And then he's got a concussion. So he's got those two things. And apparently to heal. I mean, I know with concussions, they kind of are the same, right? It's just time. Like, you can't stitch nerves back together, really, right? That's going to be a much more in-depth process to even try to find where the issue is. So, kind of like self-repair. And so he's got to relax and do nothing and, be in a darker room, not on screens, not running, not like anything like that. So
not on screens.
I know. And
Man, how's he doing?
It's really hard to tell a 12-year-old to not like want to do this stuff. And so just last night I explained to him, because I'm like, just trying to think of ways, like, I keep talking to him, asking him how he's doing. Today was his best day mentally. So he's definitely progressing. I mean, he's been, kind of like not all there the last couple days since the accident. But today he was kind of like, he didn't sleep in until like 11. That was another thing. He slept like 12, 14 hours for like the first few nights. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, this kid, like, of course I'm worried. I'm like waking up all the time and going, are you breathing? Just like the worried dad, whatever. So he's feeling better today. And but it was like, and now he wants to go to school. And I'm like, you can't go to school yet. Like, you're out for at least the whole first week, maybe the second. And so I was like, imagine it's like a fracture, like a bone fracture, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't realize you fractured, one of your arm bones or something. And you continue playing and doing whatever. And then it actually breaks because the structure has been compromised. And it just makes it that much easier to break, right? It's like, that's going on in your brain right now. You're going to start thinking that you are the same old kid that you were with the same capabilities, and you feel totally normal, and you're gonna want to get back into whatever, BMX riding, get on a skateboard, get back on motorcycles. Which he's not scared of motorcycles, which I'm glad. Like, he's already like talking about wanting to get on. He like relating it that way. I think he was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, it's like, this is just a time thing, and this is an injury that we really can't, we can't tell you how much better it's gotten. This is just a time thing. Unless you've scanned your kid's brain beforehand, which now I'm thinking about doing. So,
tell me about that.
So you can do. I think they do this in the NFL.
I was just going to bring up the NFL too.
So
when you were talking about
because concussions, I don't think I ever heard the word concussion until I was in my 20s. I'm not kidding. Like, did you ever hear the word concussion?
I mean, I heard about concussion, but I think the knowledge of what it actually meant or what it was medically.
Nobody talked about it. You got knocked out in high school, and nobody was like, "Oh, you got a concussion." It was just like, you got knocked out.
Yeah.
Nobody was like, "Yeah, you got to rest for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever." So the NFL really brought a lot of light onto concussions and the seriousness of it, because people were actually starting to, like, consecutive concussions led to some crazy ass behavior.
The point that you made about having the importance of knowing when you have a concussion, that time that it takes to heal.
Yeah.
As it can just get more and more of a severe situation, right?
Yeah.
If you, like in football, that was the whole thing about the NFL, right? Get hit. Oh,
yeah.
You wait. Hey, you're good. All right. Go back in the game or whatnot.
That's it. Yeah.
And they didn't take that time, and then that could be fatal.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, so with his case, so concussion, nerves are the issue, and then I guess what's called a stinger, which is also something they refer to in football, where you just get rocked so hard that it like shocks your nervous system, and it sounds like it's mostly like one or two of your limbs or something like that. But he got the whole fucking shebang for this one. But okay, so I do want to get into this, and I hope I'm not boring the audience with this. So that's the story of my kid, and he's doing good, and his friend is doing good, and they're on the path to recovery. So all good there, but as a parent, I gotta tell you, it is so fucking scary to like just walk up onto something like that, and you're fight or flight. You're like, you're like speed prioritizing and trying to do 5 things at once, and I mean, the emergency workers were absolutely fucking awesome. So once they got on site, they helped out a ton, but it was, I mean, you just have a whole bunch of shit in your head. And the other part of it was, it's a small community. It goes over the radio, right? And there's a lot of people in the community that are, they listen to scanners. And so they, like, some people got wind of it, and then all of a sudden it's on Facebook. And it's on, it was actually on KTVU news, right, that night.
Yeah.
So I'm getting all these texts and calls and everything from like the whole community, and not the whole community, but a good amount of people. And I'm not able to like keep up with the stuff, and I didn't realize what they were reading and what they were until I talked to one of the parents like the day after it happened, and so they're like, there were a number of rumors. It was like two people hurt on motorcycle accident, father and son being rushed to Oakland Hospital, whatever. And so people were like, Joe and his son got in a motorcycle accident together, and I'm like I don't want to have to be calling all my family now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you just like social media the availability of information just blew it up. But what came out, and there was not really any follow-up to it, but, you take what information you have in that moment and you put it out there, right? And that's what you do. So the police code for it, or the fire code for it, I can't remember the number, but it was life-threatening injuries. And then it's like, you could see our property, and there's this knoll top near the house, and that's where the helicopter landed. And so their friends that are like down in town, like see this and then hear about it, and then so like a bunch of his friends were like broken up and crying, like, and so and so like all that, I'm like, oh shit, okay, they were all like thinking. I mean, they were thinking probably worse than I was thinking. Like they had no idea as to what was going on until I finally did like a group text and copy and pasted, just like, get back to everybody, just like, this is where we're at like 10 at night. Like that was so but yeah, so that, it was a wild time. But back to the concussions. I know we weren't planning on talking about this at all, but there is a book called The Psychopath Whisperer, and I got to meet this guy. He's a psychologist. He might be a psychiatrist. This is like fucking like 12 years ago maybe, and so he just wanted to do a little wine tour and come to the winery. And so I showed him around, and really like a genius kind of guy, but like very down to earth.
Art, can we bring up the Psychopath Whisperer? I just want to see what the cover.
There you go, Kent Keel. All right, so this what's really cool about this, and he was kind of like in the middle of the technology at the time, but what he did was took this technology where he can do brain scans.
Yeah.
And he went and started scanning serial killers' brains, and then he used that data to go to younger violent offenders. And he was able to correlate that, whatever parts of, whatever parts of the brain were underdeveloped or that were smaller or bigger, that he could make a pretty damn good guess that this kid who's 16, 17, 18 and committed a violent act was going to go on and do it again and again and again. And so that I thought that was really interesting. So like from a incarceration perspective, you have a juvenile in juvenile hall that, I don't know, beat the shit out of somebody, right? Mm-hmm. And you do this brain scan and you're like, oh, his likelihood of doing this anytime again in the future is very high. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, well then what do you do from a therapeutic standpoint to try to support that child to grow out of that? And so it was kind of like this merging of the science, the technology, and then therapy, and trying to figure out how to get these kids help. So but it's the same technology that they were using, and I don't know what they're using, but something like that in sports, and you can do it for your kids. I actually don't think it's that expensive. I don't know where to get it, but so you have a baseline more or less, and with kids you have to do it more often. Like you and I probably do it once, and you're probably good, and then you get a head injury, and or maybe you like drink really heavily for 10 years, and then you go back, you're like, what happened to my brain? So
yeah,
but no, so it'll and what it will do is tell you much more definitively how long you need to recover. So rather than just a doctor saying like, okay, you had a head injury, you've been concussed, we're going to tell you, 2 weeks, just take it easy and you'll be fine.
Because of that brain scan, that they already have the information
to
compare it to?
But that's what a typical doctor would do, not knowing the baseline of your brain and what it looks like now. So if you had the baseline of your brain and then what it looked like, they might be like, you had a really bad accident, you're going to need 2 months. And like they can do that now. It's pretty cool. I'm actually thinking about now, like, a day late and a dollar short, but
yeah. So that's because I can't imagine what it must have been like to be on the scene for that.
you get just
Or,
adrenaline goes, man, and
yeah.
like you're, you just, like there's no tears. Right. You're just fucking get it done, do whatever I need to do, be there, drop everything. And we had other kids at the house too, not just the other injured kid and another friend, but like my daughter had a friend, my other daughter was there too. Like it was, and so it was kind of like, okay, now how do we manage this? Rachel was home, so she was able to be there. She wanted to get to the hospital, so her dad came up my oldest daughter stayed there with the younger kids for a couple hours, and then Rachel's dad came up. So, but it's just like, you're moving all these pieces around, and like, it's great to have that, the friendships and the family that you can all rely on, right?
Yeah.
Because when shit hits the fan, all bets are off. Like, we just had a change in our life, like, it could be a day, it could be a year, like, it could be forever. You have no idea, like, is he going to be in a wheelchair forever? And you're just like, we're going to fucking do it. That's it. Like, whatever it is, we're going to do it.
He's going to recover. Like you said, he's still going to want to ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
You still want to experience life. It's just got to be a tough balance, man, to be.
No, it's not. Childhood is meant to make mistakes, man.
Here we go.
And some kids don't survive. Like, I hate to say that because it could be my kid. But, like the CHP officer that was in the back of the helicopter with me and my kid was tucked up in the front.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, I'm just really glad to see that he's not inside playing Xbox. And I'm like, how many parents would be like, I want the safety for my kids, so I'm going to let them just do whatever they want inside. And you end up raising all these Nancy Pants little kids. Like, they're not tough. They don't have any grit. They don't have any, creative juices flowing. They're not constantly driven to try something new. It's just like the status quo, and then they're going to be government dependent someday, and then they're going to continue to vote for people that are just going to continue to maintain the power and the money and whatever else. Like, you can get into it, right? It's just you're creating a lazy society, and then we're going to.
I saw Art smiling back there.
And then we're going to rely
right now. He's like,
and then we're going to rely upon AI to support us or something. Like, it's all like you got to think like, how do you go back to the basics of human survival and living, right? You got to teach that shit. Like, how many people don't know how to slaughter an animal, how to even garden, how to make a fire? Like, can you make a fire from just grass and sticks in the woods? Like, most people can't do that. That's not a normal skill anymore.
I just thought fire was a way of saying something's awesome.
That's exactly. So like I'm a huge proponent of them going out and doing this stuff, but like also using these as learning experiences. Like, number one, I had to early on convince him about safety gear. And I was like, I'm in a good position to be able to, afford things. And so there was this really awesome helmet for motocross. And I was like, I will buy you that helmet as long as you promise me to wear your boots, your gloves, and your body armor. And like, so it's like, okay, little give and take. And it paid off, right? So like little stuff like that where it's like, okay, I mean, when we were younger running motorcycles, I was in shorts, sandals, if even having sandals on, no helmet, no shirt, just like running around. I had some bad accidents. And
I was on the bike with you. Some
some of them. Yeah, we got the scars to show it.
And I remember, how young were you when you had that where the motorcycle landed on your leg? Remember?
Oh, I was really
all the way through.
It burned all the way through my skin.
To your bone. We were just like checking it out. And we were like, whoa, that's.
So it fell. I crashed, and the bike fell on me, and I was too small to be on this bike. Like, I don't know. I was like 8, and I don't know. It was like I think 80 or something. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I do remember that I couldn't pick the goddamn bike up, and my thigh was on the muffler, being pinned down by the bike and the muffler, and that muffler had been running for a couple hours that day. It was hot, and it just sat there burning my fucking skin, and that was, I mean, you probably remember that. It was like, it was
so
like
what you're saying is you've experienced being branding.
Yeah,
beyond that,
I got the long-term branding. That thing took forever to heal, and those are my least favorite.
It's actually branded in my mind, that image. I mean, I remember when we looked at it just as a kid. It was the first time to see. I was like, "Is that your bone?"
It was. That was probably the most painful I ever had. But like, plenty of other crashes and stuff. But like, you're out there, you're building character, you're having fun, you're learning skills.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're gonna have to fix that bike and like all that shit instead of just sitting there and you know doing nothing, sitting inside. So, yeah, guns, wheels, motors, whatever like that. I mean, for guys and girls, I think those are good things to get into. It could, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, bow shooting, that sort of thing. But like, there's a ton of stuff that you can do in the outdoors, and it's just like we've gotten so like put safety as the priority in everything. I mean, I even have people that I work with who are like, you really shouldn't let them ride those ever again. I'm like, I appreciate your opinion, but like,
I mean, I'm sure what you're sharing is some people telling you how to parent.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a very different philosophy on parenting. So it's, I mean, then compared to like, I think the majority of the, my counterparts, you know, with kids, you know, that have kids my age. So, but I like it. I mean, it's a ton of fun, and you're going to have shit like this that happens. Probably happens. I mean, this was the worst of all my kids. But something like this happens like once a year. Like there's a hospital visit, there's some kind of scare, that sort of thing. And like, you just kind of use it as a teaching moment. And so like number one, so I, you know, want to protect our shit. So now it's like, okay, well, it was on my property, and there is a possibility that I'm liable for the accident for the other kid and medical expenses, whatever else. And fortunately, the family, I know them, and they're very nice. But like, it's like, man, I got to do better protecting like what we have. And so now it's like, okay, if any of the friends want to come riding, now we got to have a release of liability. And it's kind of like awkward, but I've talked to the, you know, number of parents, and they're like, no, totally fine, totally understand it.
Yeah.
Like, cool, really glad. Like, but we have to make that a normal thing now, where like you got to go to an attorney and get, you know, a release of liability for your kids to go play together. I mean, they could fall out of a tree on my property, and this, you know, the same thing, you know, would happen.
Yeah.
And then the rules on the track, because the rule on the track is you all go the same direction. I don't care what direction it is.
Oh,
but it's like skiing, right? Like you all get off a chairlift, you go down, and you know, either regroup when you're about to go down a different lane or run, but you all meet at the same chairlift at the bottom, that sort of thing. Like you all have a plan, right? So it's like point A to point B rather than, you know, just like free for all. So I'm actually gonna make this giant printout and put it in our shed, and like these are the rules. All the kids that go up there have to sign it, and then just like right there on the fucking wall.
No, I like that, and that's what happens. You have a incident like that.
Yeah.
And you learn from it, and then you start applying those learnings to make it safer, and that's how it happens. I mean, that's like the cycle, right?
I mean,
of growth.
Yeah, the cycle of growth.
The cycle of growth. I was actually, but you hit me with the chairlifting. Did you hear about that woman that got stuck at the Heavenly gondola?
Oh shit! Yeah.
Right? For like, it was over a day.
Yeah, got stuck in the
she was in there.
Gondola.
She didn't have her cell phone on her. I mean, I'm not trying to. But I thought that was odd, not to have. But I mean, also, hey, you're stuck up there. But I was just wondering, what would you have done? Would you?
Dude, I would have hunkered down.
She said she lost her voice just
yelling
so much. Yeah, just yelling. You would just hunker down.
Well, yeah. So
that's what I thought.
If you don't see anybody, why are you yelling? Like they're not going to hear you. Okay. And it was in a storm, I think, too.
Was it also in a storm?
I think it was snowing. So like that's gonna dampen all the sound, right?
Yeah.
So like So
I don't
left overnight in frigid conditions. So like you do everything you can to keep yourself as warm as you can.
15 hours.
She probably didn't have a candle or anything, like little things like that. But
a candle,
dude. I mean, I
didn't have my cell phone, but I had this candle.
Exactly. No, but just like fucking bundle up and retain your heat as much as you can, and make sure you seal that little place up as much as you can.
Oh, I would have been fine. That's why you do ice baths. Is for you're prepared
for these
situations. So
yeah, of
please
course.
do
this.
This happens all the time. Look at her. She would have been fine. She would have just been Wim Hofing it.
Yeah.
They would have taken her out, and she would have been.
She would have been like, "Oh,
she just been all
I'm
swollen,
refreshed."
Like, she just did a 15-hour.
So
should we?
What?
Well, thank you for sharing that story, by the way, because it's personal. It's also real.
I also want to encourage people to like continue to let your kids do that stuff. Like find something fun that's
why I wanted to get to the
and,
point. I knew that you could drive that home.
But that's a big I really have a big issue. I hate when I see kids that are just like frail and like, just like almost like they've been broken by the availability of technology in our society. Like, I hate to say it, but it is like they get broken, whether it's social media, somebody talking trash, somebody's got something they don't have, and then they're never going to get it. Like, they're just constantly judging themselves against what they see, and then it's also like you're just a slave to the machine, and it's like you got to break that shit.
And you bring up a good point, slave to the machine, because AI man is
AI is
again, I want to
AI
bring
is
this.
a
You know what's
scary
funny?
thing.
Because I said to you too before.
I need some wine.
Yeah, are you gonna
ahead.
get some
You
wine?
keep talking.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
I want. Are you? Joe's just getting up right now. He needs a bust open a bottle of wine for this one. I was actually gonna say
late in the afternoon.
Oh no, we're shooting. Just for the record, we're shooting at 6 a.m. right now. He's trying to just fib and say it's the afternoon. Why are you doing that? It's okay. You're a winemaker.
I've kind of had a hell of a week.
You're a winemaker.
Can you hear this? That's the sound of happiness.
Oh yeah. What are you picking?
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna offend the juicy sommeliers.
And if you hear that, that's the sound of the Karen pour, Joe. Yeah, which is just a little space up top.
But I've been drinking this every once in a while, and I mean, as I should, we make it. But like, I gotta say this, and we are gonna get into AI. This wine, you can think about it, but you can drink the fuck out of it. Like, you just drink it, and you're like, I just finished my glass, and that's what I love. Like, it can be a thinking person's wine, but it's really just a drinking wine. Like, it's great.
This is the perfect time, I think, a half an hour in about where we're ever at to say, welcome to Go With Your Palate.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about this.
Where we talk about life and death experiences.
Wine.
Wine.
Entrepreneurship.
And
a lot of whatever the fuck else, apparently, yeah.
So welcome if you're new. You're in the right place. It's okay. Take a seat,
so let's
get
into this AI thing, because we talked about it just before this thing, before we jumped in here. Yeah. So AI is a scary thing.
Yes.
I think we've already gone too far with it. I think that all the professionals would say that when you got people that are trying to lobby for laws and regulation for AI, that are people that are creating AI, there's something like that's a big red flag to me. These are people that are actually making money off of AI, that are developing it or have developed it, and they're calling for assistance to regulate it. Now, you're like, wait, you just created a monster, and now you want us, like the government, taxpayers, to help fucking put it back in its cage? Like, fuck you.
It's loose.
It's loose. It's gone.
It's loose. We're gonna get into the chat GPT.
Yeah.
But the technology itself, like one of the ones that really just hit me was this. I think what we're headed to is that soon there's going to be an app store, but it's going to be for AI, which is going to give an opportunity for anybody and everybody to kind of get in on this and create their own AI programs and software that you can actually purchase.
So you're saying like there's a basic formula, there's basic code for AI, and then you can tell that AI what to adjust to make it what you want it to be?
If we were on Millionaire right now, I would call a friend, and that would be Art. I would say Art would that be correct?
There are so many platforms right now that are being released on AI. We were talking about it this morning as well. I mean, you can get it to do just about anything from digitizing false voices.
Yeah, I've seen all that.
False videos of other people.
Well, they're putting regulation on that now, which is good. But
what I'm getting at, Art, is for example, in the gaming world, right? You have a lot of these games come out, and then they have mods. So, for example, a game that's been out for years, but it's just what I have experience with, maybe dabbled in a little bit. I'm not a gamer, but yeah, I am. Fallout 4, they create software, and then they kind of give out the code, and people can kind of create their own games from that code.
Okay.
Right? And so that's what I was imagining is kind of happening with AI. So when you have, like, with AI, one of the things that was getting to me which is Art's just bringing up all the different kinds of AI that we can have. But one of the ones that I saw was someone created was looking through walls. So it was using AI to take over Wi-Fi if you have Wi-Fi in your house, and they were able to show through walls, through anything that you could identify people where they were at.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so let's take a step back because I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know enough about AI, but I do have a sense of, that it is a very strong tool, and I have a sense of where it can be used and where it's going to be more difficult to use it, right?
So
because I always think about, well, I can get into this because I want to relate this to wine at some point, but if you want to get into this, because this is
this is
the
what
first I've heard about this,
right? Thermal imaging.
Yeah.
And right now, Art is on Chat GPT, which we'll have fun with this, which I know a lot of other people already know about. And
it just populated like, I don't know, a couple thousand words.
And so,
what did you type?
Art has.
How can I make wine in the Joe Wagner fashion or style? Okay.
Yeah. So
hold up, I got to read this.
We're kind of jumping around here, but right now we're gonna kind of play with this Chat GPT.
It's not as much detail as it could be, but like there's
now
a lot of stuff that's pretty spot on.
Okay, so this kind of broke it down, right? To make wine like Joe Wagner, and it has grape selection and vineyard management, and harvest timing and fermentation. You have oak aging and
yeast selection.
Joe is reading through this, and you're saying that it's. I mean, as
I want,
you think it's pretty vague, right?
I want to invite all of the sommeliers out there that have criticized anybody's wine, not just mine, to go and have AI teach you how to make wine and buy a couple pounds of fruit and do it. I just want to see it. So, okay, but here, can I jump in on this?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
so this is one thing I think about. I'll say farming. There's some really awesome stuff like AI using, on a tractor, using lasers in row crops to assess and target and kill the weeds, any invasive species that they don't want out in the fields, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Very efficient.
That is very cool.
Like no chemicals, all that stuff. Like you're like, oh, there's way too much good stuff. Now, there's going to be a limit where I think the human factor needs to be involved in farming, especially with something like grapes that you're going to be using for something that, you're producing into wine, right? Because the human factor is saying, how do I assess maturity? Well, I assess maturity very differently than maybe a very traditional Burgundian winemaker. Mm-hmm. So which choice are they going to take? And that was interesting when you said Joe Wagner. How do you make a wine in the Joe Wagner style? So that, and they didn't really get it. They got more of like just the kind of generalization of harvesting and timing of harvesting and fermentation. But like, so can AI listen to this podcast and take all of my ideas and ideologies of farming, picking grapes and making wine, and then say like, well, this is exactly what you would do? Because I mean, Chat GPT couldn't do it, but I'm sure it could. But still, the human factor needs to be there. So tasting, and I mean, no doubt at some point, all of this can be covered by AI. I would not be surprised. But you also need robots.
But I was going to say though that Art, if you did put that back in, because there is something interesting about AI. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. But you can put that in, and then you can ask AI to go deeper, to go further.
Wagner's winemaking philosophy often involves minimal intervention. You got me wrong. Dude, you failed.
Oh,
you
shoot.
failed. AI failed.
If you're just listening right now, I wish you could actually see this, but Joe's already. You're winning right now.
I am, man. I'm up 2 already. Your assessment of Joe's wine style
I brought up the
incorrect.
clones though because I did ask about winemaking and then kind of had it go in deeper, like how to make a wine that is a 95-point wine. Like trying to get specific on having some kind of screaming eagle or some kind of like example of that and seeing what it would do with it.
Huh?
And it got crazy. I mean, they started naming off the certain clones and stuff
So it
like
did
that
get a little
used,
detailed.
But you make a good point. I mean, it's not there yet, but we've talked about this. Is it gonna? It's headed that way. You think where you're like you mentioned this podcast, or it's going to be able to start pulling even more information.
What are we going to get to? I think people are going to get to a point where they're going to be like, I just want to live off the grid now. I don't want to be part of technology. Like, I actually want to, because I want to live, and living involves doing things.
Yeah.
And if you're just constantly catered to, I mean, you're just going to create a whole generation of people, you know, with the wrong priorities and dying young. Like, that's honestly what I what I think. So it's interesting. It's gonna revert back to like communes, like the hippies did. I wouldn't be surprised. Where it's like, this is a no technology zone.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just like, you want to live off the land and be part of like what being human is. I would not be surprised if we start seeing those things pop up in the next few years. They're probably already up, for that matter.
Well, I mean, even if you look at food, I think we're moving even more towards there's now so much more education coming up about how processed food are. And we've done this and broke down ingredients and everything and compared in different countries and you know, how we're with the high fructose corn syrup.
In everything, dude, I try to do everything from scratch.
Yeah.
I like won't even use a microwave. Like I'm like that funny,
too.
Like, and I don't know that it's bad for you to use a microwave, but I'm like, no, I'll fucking use a stove. Don't take my gas away, though. I mean, I can cook over an open fire. I've done that plenty of times, but don't take my gas away. Like in California, if you are not aware of this, they're trying to ban gas stoves in California, and it's absolutely ridiculous. They even were talking about it in restaurants, and I think this is by county, so county by county. Oh, yeah, Jesus Christ. We just sit here and read Chat GPT. There were discussions and proposals in California regarding restrictions on natural gas use in buildings, including the potential prohibition of natural gas in new construction. However, the situation might have evolved by then. Anyways, so yeah, it'll continue to come up and be something that they're pushing on, because for whatever reason, in a state that we lose power pretty frequently, probably more than most states, we're trying to go all electric. And I mean, how did that work out for like the Teslas in the Midwest during like the freeze, right? Like it's not sustainable. So you got to like, you know, I don't know. I think California is going down the wrong path still. And it's pretty disappointing to see.
But you were saying that you think going back to AI and wine, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but agriculture or the wine industry is going to be
so I would describe it
from that.
As not safe. Not safe.
It wasn't safe,
but I would say more insulated than other industries. So, but again, like, you got to think of like what product. I mean, I suppose if AI got to a point where I said, I want to make rubber duckies and make a business out of it. AI, can you tell me what equipment I need to buy to make rubber duckies and package it and ship it off and sell it to stores or whatever else? And then you've got, you know, you're either basing it on price to get your customers to purchase, or you're out there selling, and personal relationships still mean something, I think, and at least in most states, maybe not this one. No, but so that's all easy, right? You're making a trinket is what you're making. And so that's something that's pretty straightforward, that really takes a lot of the human involvement and emotion out of it. When you make something like wine, and with the plethora of different philosophies on grape growing and winemaking, I'd find it really hard for AI to be able to, like, especially if you're saying, tell me how to make a wine that tastes like 2018 Romani Conti or whatever, like that.
Let's do that right now.
Like you can get really specific, and if it can tell you, then great. But then it's not at a point yet where the AI is driving a robot to be able to do those things and get out to the vineyard and farm the vineyard and make the wine and all that. And I don't think it'd be able to do it right, because there is. I mean, I know people believe that they are going to be able to have better vision, better feel, better smell, better taste, better hearing, all that stuff, like a robot in the future, and it probably will. But I still think that there is an emotional element to certain products, and we're fortunate that wine's one of them. And I'm going to get murdered by a fucking robot for saying this. I don't think a robot ever is going to have emotion.
Oh, man.
You watch. I'm going to have a fucking spike through my head in the next 10 years when they start to come out.
We'll just replay this.
Yeah.
For you.
You remember in 2024 when you said, Now you were murdered. And then what's the point of warfare when you have robots that are out there shooting stuff? Like, if this is your
I've
army
seen this.
going against another army, right? Like, this is impressive. They were watching a robot pick stuff up, pick up a plank, put it on,
Oh yeah.
making a little bridge, and probably going to walk up the stairs. Now he's carrying a heavy bag, walking up the stairs, walking over the plank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, doing a little jump.
But look at that. He's kind of got this prance going on though. The way he's walking. He's got some style, you know.
So this is impressive, but what is the point of war if you're fighting wars with these? If you're America and you're out there shooting the Taliban, I get it, because the Taliban's probably never going to have robots, right?
Well,
maybe, I don't know. Depends on how much Saudi money they get.
How many people have nukes? Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but like, really, you look at that and you're like, that's not a war. Like, a war needs emotion. I sound like an ass.
No,
you tell me what a war looks like without any emotion. Like, you have to be driven by the emotions. You're getting shot at. Your fucking adrenaline is pumping. You're a robot. You're just like, boom, 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 running through, doing whatever, and it doesn't really like have an effect. It's like, well, I don't care if our robots die or your robots die.
Yeah.
As long as, we kill more of your robots, and then we'll just be like, hey, we're the victors. Then you still have all the people who are like, we don't like you.
Well, I think the idea is once they make it through your robots, then they'll come for you, hiding in whatever.
Oh, so they're
fortress
just
that you have.
so
you know
they're
what I
they're
mean?
truly the pawns.
Yeah.
They're the grunts.
Yeah. Have you been seeing these robots? It's cool to see the ones fighting, actually, like the sparring robots. I've seen that.
Yeah,
I thought
I've
that
seen
was
that.
kind of like interesting. So you don't see robots like we're watching now. Like right now we're just going through kind of all these. This was a robot
But
like in a lab, or it looks like now they're at
But this technology has
making
come.
cars. But
This technology has come so fast, right?
yeah, so you don't see this. These
mean, it's-
robots in the vineyard.
No, I mean, actually, I would love it if they, because like something that is very specific, and it's different in every vineyard. But like if you go to one vineyard block, I think you could train a robot, whether it's on legs or wheels, whatever. I think you could train a robot to properly prune a vineyard.
Yes.
Which would be very cool, because that's where you're like, there's a lot of detail, and there's always human error, and I can guarantee you if you programmed it right, then that robot would do a better job than any human.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but that's like,
Well,
I mean,
I'm thinking what the robots could have. I mean, I'm thinking they could have little cameras all over their hands. So even when they're in there in the vineyards, then they're getting this almost micro vision of the fruit and stuff that they're picking and stuff to get more precise, I guess, in what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just an idea, but
Man, went to AI and then robots taking over the wine world.
yeah.
I never thought about it. Do you think that sommeliers are AI robots? Because they all say the same thing. They're like, they're all programmed. Like,
You mean the
commie-sams.
The commie-sams.
All right, I'm coming up with a
Sami-
new
oh,
name right now that's more about the robot Psalms.
Yeah. Because
there is a group of those. Not all of them are that, but there is a group of those that they all do the same thing. It's like they get on Facebook or something, and they're like, check out this Gruner Veltliner.
Yeah.
Meh. Like yeah. So, and I do love a good Gruner as long as it's not sweet. But just like little shit like that, where I think that yeah, I'm gonna come up with something for that for the next episode.
But you did bring up a good idea. I just want to try it, Art, on ChatGPT. Let's just ask it how to make a wine that you choose, to like a specific wine with vintage.
Okay, I got one. Art, and the proper English would be, what are the steps to make? Let's go Trimbach, Trimbach, Riesling. Sorry, Reisling. Okay. It's a
So here we go.
renowned Alsatian wine producer. Oh, geez. Okay. Okay, chill, man.
It's going off on you right now.
So, okay, scroll back up to the top. Actually, go to steps. I just saw steps. Okay, grape harvesting. I'm gonna assess if this is just too vague or if it's detailed enough to actually have some grip on this. Harvest Riesling grapes at the peak of ripeness. Ensure they are free from mold and disease. Okay, kind of BS, right? Crushing and pressing. Crush the grapes to release the juice. Press the crushed grapes to extract the juice. Very vague again. The must preparation, which transfer the juice, must, which actually juice is juice and must is must, to a fermentation vessel, because if you don't have the solids, the skins, the pulp, and the seed, then you're not must. It's just juice. Test the must with a hydrometer to determine sugar content. Additives. Add Campden tablets to kill wild yeast and bacteria. I've never heard of that.
What is Campden
I don't know.
tablets?
I don't try to kill wild
wait.
yeast.
Art, before you ask another question, just try to ask it that you need more details. Please go more in depth.
Well, look at this. Like, okay, if necessary, adjust acidity with tartaric acid. I haven't done an acid add on a wine in I tried it when I was young, and we don't really have that issue, I guess. But that's a very traditional mentality. Add wine nutrients and energizer for the yeast. Yeah, give them some Red Bull. Okay, I'm just reading through this real quick. So overall, this does look vague overall, and so I don't think it must not be mining the details of a specific wine. So even on our website, we get into some details, but we don't get into the details like I do on this podcast when we get into something specific and it's really drill down into it. Same thing if I'm talking to somebody out in the market and they want to know the really gritty details. I'm pretty open about everything. I'm actually very open about everything. So it's it's I don't know if ChatGPT is not harvesting that from the proper place, because the proper place in our case that would be visible would either be if it's listening to me on my phone or through our podcast.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT, get your shit together and start listening to Go With Your Palate. I don't understand why it's so hard.
Well, let's just Art, go ahead and press enter. Let's just see if it can redeem itself, which I don't even think it's gonna do. Doesn't look like.
No, it looks like they just turned it into a longer form.
Okay, so we're not there yet. I think you're right. You're right. Insulated. Not
insulated, safe, not safe. I agree.
But
insulated.
Not there yet. But I mean, some of the other technology. I mean, we all saw with the whole Biden fiasco.
He had a fiasco?
AI.
When?
Well, AI did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about
voice,
the AI.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about the actual. He's been a stellar president. I mean, let me tell you.
I said the.
Yeah.
I said the word. Where's the lights right now in the room? I thought they were gonna go off.
You all keep voting in old white men, and then you criticize them for being old white men. Jesus Christ, change who you're voting for. I don't understand how else to say it. It's this.
That's actually it's right on. I know, right?
Oh man! All right. No, but I do want to talk about as we're kind of talking a little bit about technology. Are you done with AI?
I mean, I think you won, dude. To tell you,
I won for now.
I thought it was going to surprise you, but it really failed. Right here, you were here.
Fuck you, AI.
Questions.
Fuck you, AI.